The San Francisco 49ers finished the 2023 season with a 12-5 record and made it to the Super Bowl for the second time in 5 years. It was a very successful season as they finished top 3 in both offensive and defensive points per game, and aside from a 3-game hiccup in the middle of the year and one bad game against Baltimore, this team played lights out for most of the season. They would go on to beat the Packers in the divisional round of the playoffs with a score of 24-21, and would proceed to beat the Lions in the NFC Championship game with a score of 34-31, before losing to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl 25-22. It was a tough end of the year for the 49ers and their fan base, as this franchise has, without a doubt, been one of the most successful teams over the past half decade, and unfortunately have 0 Super Bowl wins to show for it. They've been close time and time again, and they enter 2024 as one of the top teams to win it all. But as we know, no team in today's era lasts forever. And with Brock Purdy entering year 3 and a contract looming, I think this is the San Francisco 49ers' last chance with this current group of guys. We've seen several teams retool and reload over the past few years, and it'll be no different for San Francisco soon enough. But not before they have one last dance. But the question is, how far can they actually go this year? Well, we're going to break it down in today's video. Now, with the 49ers season approaching and with everyone expecting big things out of them, now is a good time to load up on sports memorabilia before the season starts. And I get it, it may seem like it's a high initial cost, especially in today's economy, but there is a more accessible way to start collecting, and that's through live breaks. Live breaks are events where a host opens boxes of memorabilia, live of course, hence the name, where you get a shot to win authentic sports memorabilia for a fraction of the cost. And you can join Ultimate Autographs community and receive 15% off your first order using code FIRST15 through the pinned comment. But that's not all. In honor of the 49ers team preview, I am giving away a full-size signed Frank Gore Lunar Eclipse replica helmet inscribed Frank the Tank. Now, if you are a 49ers fan, or even if you're a football fan and you want this gorgeous piece in your collection, you can sign up to win this for free through the pinned comment. And this is from my friends at Ultimate Autographs. All viewers will receive 15% off their first order with Ultimate Autographs and receive a chance to win this Frank Gore autographed full-size helmet. And a big thank you to Ultimate Autographs for sponsoring today's video. And we are starting today's video by breaking down who the 49ers lost in free agency and who they brought in free agency. We will of course get to the draft later, but the biggest loss this team suffered was defensive lineman Arik Armstead. Arik was a first-round pick all the way back in 2015, and while Armstead isn't an elite player by any means, the 49ers will feel his loss at times throughout the 2024 season, and he will not be an easy guy to replace. He had over 40 pressures last year and had 5 sacks, and he was one of 4 49ers players to have over 40 pressures last year, and it's always tough to see a longtime veteran leave in free agency, but it's a part of the game, and the NFL is, of course, a business. Now, they also had Chase Young leave in free agency, and I know Chase never really lived up to the number 2 player in the 2020 draft hype, and expectations at times were incredibly unfair for him, but he was still a pretty solid pass rusher last year. He, of course, split time between Washington and San Francisco in 2023 and had a career high in pressures with 66, and Chase will not be an easy guy to replace either. And having to replace 2 guys along the defensive line in one offseason is tough, but the 49ers brought in veteran Leonard Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos, and Jordan Elliott to try and replace these guys. They also lost 2020 first-round pick Javon Kinlaw in free agency to the Jets, and Javon had the best year of his career in 2023, but again, not an irreplaceable player by any means. And with normal teams, I would have concerns with how they're going to replace guys, but the 49ers have shown time and time again that they, more often than not, have things under control and will prove to be fine in the long run. And I think this proved to be especially true in Javon's case, as he was drafted to be the next DeForest Buckner, or to have the type of impact Buckner made. But in his 4 years in San Francisco, he had 70 total tackles and 5 sacks as a first-round pick. San Francisco survived without DeForest as they went to 3 NFC Championship games in 4 years, since the trade that is, and they'll be fine with the losses they suffered in free agency. They also lost backup quarterback Sam Darnold, Ray McCloud went to the Falcons, and Clelin Ferrell went to the Commanders. Needless to say, the 49ers needed to increase their depth after these losses. They weren't too active in free agency from a big name standpoint, and that should have been expected as there's not a lot of money to go around with how star-studded of a roster this is. Whenever you have guys like Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel, Trent Williams, and Fred Warner to pay, and we'll get to more on Trent later, there's only so much money to go around. So I wasn't shocked at all to see San Francisco's biggest deal be a guy like Leonard Floyd and even Yetur Gross-Matos. Now, to be honest, I was a little surprised they gave Yetur Gross-Matos a 2-year deal worth up to $18 million. Gross-Matos is an okay depth piece and has 13 sacks in 4 years, but he's not a guy who can consistently get after the quarterback, and I thought $9 million average annual value was incredibly rich for who he is as a player. Now, I think Leonard Floyd will be an okay player for the 49ers, and Leonard will certainly have his moments, and he'll probably have a game or two where he has 6 pressures, 2 sacks, and is in the defensive player of the week conversation, but he will be 32 when the season starts, and despite him having 9 or more sacks in each of the last 4 years, this may be surprising, but he only had 50 pressures or more in 2 of those seasons. Leonard has had the best years of his career as a Robin to another pass rusher, and it'll be the same in San Francisco with Nick Bosa and Javon Hargrave, each being more of a focus for the opposing offensive line. In terms of a landing spot, I don't think there was a better situation for Leonard Floyd to enter at this point in his career. And when the 2024 season is over, assuming he plays at least 15 games of course, which is a fair assumption as he's been an extremely durable player over the course of his career, I would be surprised if he doesn't finish the year with at least 8 or 9 sacks. He is a really good secondary pass rusher. I just don't want the takeaway to be, well, he could have a 13 or 14 sack season and have 70 pressures when he's never been that type of guy. He'll be solid, and you need solid players, but I don't expect him to be truly dominant, which again is fine, and he wasn't paid to be that type of guy either. But a guy who is paid to be that player is Nick Bosa, and simply put, Bosa is a dominant pass rusher and is absolutely a guy who can, and in fact does, take over games. Bosa has been one of the best pass rushers in the league since being drafted number 2 overall out of Ohio State back in 2019, and he has had at least 75 pressures in every season he's played, minus the 2020 season, of course, when he went down with a torn ACL. And the 49ers defense was dominant last year, and it's a unit I expect to be very good again for a few reasons. Nick Bosa is a problem, and he is a player teams game plan away from because of how routinely he is in the backfield and how often he disrupts plays. But one of my favorite moves this team made over the past few years was when they went out and signed Javon Hargrave to a 4-year, $84 million contract during the 2023 offseason. Javon is now a 2-time Pro Bowler, and aside from Justin Madubuike, the Ravens defensive tackle who has really come into his own over the past few years, Javon Hargrave is another interior defensive lineman that's a perfect example of taking some time to adjust to the NFL level before becoming a truly dominant player. And anytime you have to game plan against a Defensive Player of the Year award-winning pass rusher in Bosa and a Pro Bowl defensive tackle in Hargrave, good luck, because you're going to need it. And if that's not enough, they have an inside linebacker in Fred Warner, who is now a 3-time first-team All-Pro, and it's not an exaggeration to say, a guy who has played at a Hall of Fame level for the past 4 years. They, of course, also have Dre Greenlaw, who is expected to miss the first few games of the 2024 season, as he unfortunately tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, but I do think this unit will more than be able to hold the fort down without him for the first few games. Greenlaw was playing really well in the Super Bowl before the injury, and there are a lot of 49ers fans that genuinely believe if he does not go down, then the 49ers would have won the Super Bowl because Travis Kelce would not have been as impactful. But even without Dre for a few games, this unit will still be very good, and there will also be another former All-Pro returning in safety Talanoa Hufanga, who unfortunately tore his ACL in Week 11 of the 2023 season. And I honestly don't think the 49ers secondary gets enough credit, because this team quietly led the NFL in interceptions defensively last year. Now, are the 49ers corners the best in the league? Absolutely not, but they rarely put this team in position to lose, and that's huge. Sure, they're going to give up a play here and there, but every corner does. No corner goes an entire season without allowing a single reception in today's era, but the 49ers also don't need the best corners in the league when the rest of their defense is so good, and especially when their pass rush gets home as fast as it does. So as long as the 49ers corners are, not awful and at least serviceable, they're going to be fine. And I also really like the addition of second-round corner Renardo Green, who will only help this team down the stretch and provide valuable corner depth. All in all, I think this defense is still going to be one of the best in the league, and I don't think there's any reason to think they wouldn't be. We often discuss complementary football on the channel, with the team being able to sustain long drives offensively, to be able to keep the defense off the field and well rested, and the 49ers are the textbook example of this. They may not finish top 3 in points allowed per game like they did last year, but they're going to be one of the better defenses in the league. As for the 2024 49ers offense, they play the biggest part as to why the title of today's video is what it is, meaning it's the 49ers' last chance. And for me, it really applies to 3 players. And the first, of course, is the reigning Offensive Player of the Year, Christian McCaffrey. Now, Christian was a part of the 2017 running back draft class, and for those who may not remember, or for those who are not aware, the 2017 running back draft class was incredible. It featured guys like Christian McCaffrey, Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, and to be honest, I may have forgotten 1 or 2, but that's the point as to how loaded the draft class was, and I know Jamal Williams was in there as well. But running backs in today's era play less than ever before, and Leonard Fournette is out of the league. Dalvin Cook he might as well be out of the league. He had a bad year with the Jets last year, and he was brought on to the Ravens for a postseason run, and you get the point. I mean, these guys are at the end of their career, and Christian McCaffrey also takes a lot of hits because he is an offensive weapon. So I really, really worry about CMC with how he's going to play down the stretch of the 2024 season when we're in weeks 14 and beyond, because his body's not just going to be, taking the hits from weeks 1 through 13 of this year. It's going to have 7 years of taking hits at the NFL level. And that is one thing that I worry about. Now, one thing that I also worry about is Trent Williams being 36 years old, still in the trenches. Now, it's not normal for a 33 to 35-year-old Trent Williams, or a left tackle, to play at a first-team All-Pro level like Trent has in each of the last 3 years. And right now, Trent is in a bit of a contract dispute with the 49ers, and to me, I mean, granted, I am an outsider looking in, but look, it's simple. Are you going to go to the gas station and say you're not going to pay these prices when you need gas? No, and you're not going to find a Hall of Fame left tackle in the streets a couple of weeks before the season starts that's anywhere close to as good as Trent is. So no matter how you do it, no matter how it's done, pay him. It's that simple. Just pay him. Whatever it is, I don't care. You're not going to find anybody close that's going to be able to protect Brock Purdy, a player who, let's call it what it is, you're probably going to pay north of $52 million in a couple of years to, so you got to pay the guy. Now, one of the reasons that I have postponed the 49ers team preview is because of the pending Brandon Aiyuk situation. And the longer that this situation goes on, the more I think he stays in the Bay Area. And there's been a couple of clips recently. There was an interview where CMC, like a week and a half ago, accidentally called Brandon Aiyuk his former teammate. And then there was a clip recently where Debo said signs were going in the right direction. So at this point, I am going to be under the belief that Brandon is a 49er in 2024, and I am under the belief that he's going to sign a contract extension. So that was kind of the reason for the postponement of the 49ers team preview. But look, Brandon Aiyuk should be well over 1,000 yards again if he plays all 17 games this year. And Debo, while statistically may not be the player that he was in 2021 ever again, he is such a unique chess piece that his presence on the team and when he's on the field is invaluable. And another reason as to why the title of the video is what it is it also plays to George Kittle's age. George will be 31, and George will still probably be productive over the next 2 years, 3 years probably for that matter too, but at some point he's going to decline, and it's again, like Christian McCaffrey, it's a matter of when. Now, I know Travis Kelce is a little bit older than George, and he's been productive well into his mid-30s, but I mean, I think it's safe to say George plays a more physical style of football than Travis does, especially from a blocking standpoint, which I think from the longevity standpoint of Kittle's career would shorten his athletic prime, but this all plays into why I think it's the 49ers' last chance. And when you look at the conference, specifically at the team in the NFC that gave the 49ers the biggest threat last year, which was the Lions, you know, you look at their roster with young guys like Amon-Ra, Penei Sewell, even Jared Goff's only 30. With Penei and with Amon-Ra both being 25 or younger, and then of course Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta, they're going to be around for at least the next 2 or 3 years, and by that time, Trent Williams would be 38, CMC would be 30, Kittle would be 33, so if the 49ers are ever going to win the Super Bowl, I said it last year, but last year to me was really like the true last chance. They were up in the Super Bowl, they had the chance, and they couldn't close the deal. 2024, if 2023 was here, 2024 is slightly a little behind, but this is it for me, guys. This is the final year for the 49ers, and everything has to gel together for them to bring home a championship. Now, from a stat projection standpoint for Brock Purdy, I think he will be around 4,300 yards, 30 to 32 passing touchdowns, and around 9 to 10 interceptions, which is about where he was last year. Now, one thing about Brock Purdy, I gotta be honest, guys, I like him a lot. Now, is he a top 3 or 4 quarterback in the NFL? No. But I think there's a complete just, like, people want to hate watch Brock Purdy, and then there's people that want to say Brock Purdy is one of the best in the league, and I think there's a complete discourse on where he actually is. He is a tremendous quarterback. He is a very, very good player, and as we saw last year, he can take a team to a Super Bowl. Granted, there was a lot that had to happen for him to get to the Super Bowl, but Brock is a good player. He reads the field very well. He has a lot of scoot in his game, which is underrated. I mean, the way that Brock can get out of trouble in the pocket while keeping his eyes downfield and then hit Debo or Ayuk for, you know, a gain of 25 yards is incredibly underrated. And I think he is a truly underappreciated player, and I think the 49ers fan base knows that best. But pertaining to the 2024 season, for me, for the 49ers offense, and for guys that are aging like CMC, George Kittle, and Trent Williams, this is the year. Now, for the 2024 49ers rookie impact, I would not expect all that much this year, and that's not to say it's a bad draft class, because I don't think it is, but when you break it down, I mean, Ricky Pearsall specifically, their first-round pick, how much work is he actually going to get as the third best receiver on the team, and the fourth or fifth receiving option, depending on where you have Kittle and CMC in the mix? So as a first-round receiver, to be honest, I'd be surprised if he has more than 40 receptions this year, and this, of course, is all dependent on Brandon Ayuk staying at this point in time. Now, I do like their second-round pick, nickel corner Renardo Green, and I think he will be the most productive rookie, honestly, by a lot for the 49ers 2024 class. I really think one of their best value picks was safety Malik Mustafa from Wake Forest, and he was a prospect I liked a lot throughout the draft process, and I think there's definitely going to be a couple of plays this year where you see a 52-yard punt, and it's one of those plays where the kick returners or the punt returners here, and then you see Mustafa just in slow motion, ball is here, boom, right there, car crash collision, Mustafa on the delivering end. He's going to be a playmaker for this team, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he forces 2 or 3 fumbles this year on special teams alone. I think he's going to be that type of impact player, and I think he will eventually be a starter in the long run. Now, one other player that I liked for the 49ers draft class was running back Isaac Guerendo, and I hope that Guerendo takes some carries from CMC in a good way to manage CMC's workload, and I hope, again, from a rushing standpoint, that CMC's workload is a little less this year, and that Kyle opts to give backs or other backs on the roster more carries, so that CMC is still a really, really good player late in the season, and not a really, really run-down player late in the season. So when you wrap all of this up, I wouldn't expect all that much rookie impact from the 49ers 2024 draft class, but for a team that's been to the conference championship game and for the past 5 years, at least that far, I think John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan know what they're doing. So wouldn't expect that much, but I think they'll be all right in the long run. The 49ers schedule really isn't all that bad. I mean, of course, they're going to have tough games, and we'll get to those. But if they beat the Jets in week 1, then I think there's a really good chance this team starts out 6-0, barring injuries, of course. And unlike some other teams, or maybe I guess less than others, the 49ers really don't F around and find out. I mean, more often than not, they take care of business. And aside from a 3-game stretch last year, and I don't really include the Week 18 game in which a Carson Wentz-led Rams team beat a Sam Darnold-led 49ers team, they won every other game except the Christmas night game against the Ravens. So I don't really have anything negative to say about the 49ers other than age and other than what's going to happen when they get to the postseason again, and can Kyle Shanahan close out a Super Bowl. But they're going to take care of business. They're going to win at least 11 games. To be honest, I think it'll be 12, maybe even 13. And yes, they do have a tough stretch from week 12 through 17, in which they go to places like Buffalo and Green Bay in consecutive weeks, then have a couple of tough home games, and then go to Miami for a cross-country trip. But they're going to be fine. I mean, they're going to win a lot more games than they lose, obviously, and I really think they're going to be the number 1 seed. And at this point, preseason, I mean, this is, of course, with the benefit of most teams being healthy, but I think it's going to be a repeat NFC Championship game. I think the 49ers and Lions are the 2 best teams in the NFC, but as of now, we'll see who wins that game. I have said that I think the Lions will go to the Super Bowl this year, but I very much think the 49ers team ceiling is a trip to the Super Bowl. Ultimately, I think the Lions would win that game when they play again this year, or if they play again in the playoffs this year, but there's no reason to think that the 49ers can't win it all in 2024. So that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like and subscribe, as it helps the channel tremendously, as well as check out Ultimate Autographs for a chance to win a Frank Gore signed full-size helmet. I hope you guys enjoyed, and until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.